The stitches across my abdomen pulled with every breath as my father-in-law shoved the restaurant keys into my trembling hands. "Keep it running or you're out on the street," Harold barked, his face red with impatience. "We've already delayed this Vegas trip twice because of your little surgery." I stood in the doorway of our apartment, the one above their restaurant that came with supposedly reduced rent in exchange for occasional help. My husband Mark stood behind his parents with their luggage, avoiding my eyes like he always did when they steamrolled over me. "Harold, I just had a tumor removed 4 days ago," I said quietly, my hand instinctively moving to protect my bandages. "The doctor said no lifting, no standing for long periods." "Drama queen," my mother-in-law Patricia cut in, adjusting her gaudy Vegas-themed sunglasses. "Women used to give birth in fields and go back to work. You had a little procedure. The restaurant needs to stay open. We have bills to pay." Mark finally spoke, but not in my defense. "Come on, Nina. It's just 5 days. The staff knows what to do. You just need to supervise." I looked at my husband of 3 years, searching for any sign of the man who'd held my hand through the diagnosis, who'd promised we'd get through this together. That man had vanished the moment his parents arrived at the hospital, complaining about the timing of my surgery conflicting with their vacation plans. "The doctor said," I tried again. "The doctor doesn't pay our rent," Harold snapped. "You do. And if that restaurant closes for even 1 day, you can find somewhere else to live. We've been more than generous letting you stay here at below market rate." Below market rate. I almost laughed. We paid $2,000 a month for a roach-infested apartment with broken heating, plus 40 hours a week of unpaid labor in their restaurant. But with my medical bills and Mark's student loans, we couldn't afford to move. "Fine," I said, accepting the keys. The metal felt cold against my palm. "Have a good trip." Patricia smirked, satisfied. "The breakfast prep starts at 4 a.m. Don't be late. And remember, the Monday special is meatloaf, Tuesday is fish and chips." I tuned out her recitation of the menu I knew by heart after 2 years of indentured servitude. As they loaded into their car, Mark pecked my cheek with a mumbled, "You're the best," before climbing into the driver's seat to take them to the airport. I stood there watching them go, one hand pressed against my incision, the other gripping those keys. That's when I smiled. The same smile the surgeon had seen when I'd woken up from anesthesia to find my in-laws complaining about the inconvenience. The same smile I'd worn when they'd insisted I check out early to save on hospital bills. They had no idea what they'd just done. I shuffled back inside and immediately called my friend Carla, a paralegal who'd been begging me to document my in-laws' business practices for months. "They finally did it," I said. "They left me in charge while I'm on medical leave, with keys to everything. Girl, please tell me you're going to." "Oh, I'm going to do exactly what they asked," I said, already reaching for my phone to start recording. "I'm going to run their restaurant. I'm just going to do it my way." The first thing I did was call Dr. Martinez, my surgeon. "I need medical documentation that I'm not cleared for work," I explained. "My employers are demanding I work despite your orders." "That's illegal," she said immediately. "I'll have the paperwork ready within an hour. Do you need me to call them?" "No," I said, smiling wider despite the pain. "I need you to be ready to talk to some other people in about 5 days." Next, I called my cousin Luis, who worked for the health department. "Remember when I told you about the expired meat they relabel? And the grease trap that hasn't been cleaned in 2 years? Nina, are you finally going to let me?" "Monday morning," I said. "Surprise inspection. Bring everyone." Over the next 5 days, I ran the Golden Walk restaurant exactly as my in-laws had taught me. I just documented everything this time. I took photos of the industrial freezer where they kept the fresh fish that had been there since last summer, carefully relabeled with new dates whenever health inspectors were scheduled. I recorded video of the mouse droppings behind the stoves that Patricia insisted were just pepper. I documented the box of expired licenses in Harold's office, the safety violations in the kitchen, and the creative bookkeeping that showed different numbers to the IRS than to their insurance company. But I didn't stop there. On day 2, I called Rosa, one of their longest-serving employees who they'd been shorting on overtime for years. "Bring your pay stubs," I told her. "All of them." Word spread quickly. By day 3, I had a line of current and former employees at my door, all with stories of wage theft, unsafe working conditions, and threats of deportation if they complained. I documented everything, made copies, and organized it all into neat folders. The beautiful part? I kept the restaurant running the whole time. Every morning at 4 a.m., I was there with my heating pad pressed against my incision, directing prep from a chair I'd dragged into the kitchen. I couldn't lift or stand for long, but I could supervise. Just like they'd asked. On day 4, I found the Holy Grail, Harold's real books. Not the ones he showed the IRS, but the ones that detailed exactly how much money they'd been skimming, how they'd been avoiding taxes, and most interestingly, how they'd been overcharging their tenants, including us, while claiming poverty to avoid making repairs. That's when I called Malik Washington, the investigative reporter from Channel 7, who'd been trying to do a story on predatory landlords in our neighborhood. I have everything you need, I told him. But you need to be here Monday morning. Sunday night, Mark called from Vegas. Hey babe, just checking in. How's everything going? Perfect, I said, surrounded by boxes of evidence. The restaurant's running smoothly. Everyone showed up for their shifts. No problems at all. See, I knew you could handle it. Mom says to make sure you prep extra meatloaf for tomorrow. Mondays are always busy. Already done, I lied, knowing full well that Monday was going to be busier than any of them expected. I barely slept that night, partially from pain and partially from anticipation. At 3:45 a.m., I was at the restaurant, unlocking the doors for the morning crew. But instead of starting prep, I gathered everyone in the dining room. I know you're all scared of the Brennans, I said, looking at the faces of people who'd been exploited for years. But tomorrow that changes. When the health inspector arrives, tell the truth. When the news crew asks questions, tell them everything. And when the labor board investigator wants to see your pay stubs, show them. Rosa raised her hand. What about our jobs? If the restaurant closes? I've already talked to the owner of Rosita's down the street. She's hiring full staff, better pay, actual benefits. Everyone here has a job waiting if you want it. They stared at me in shock. I'd spent day 3 not just documenting, but networking, calling in favors, making sure these people who'd been trapped like me had somewhere safe to land. Monday morning came like Christmas. I was in Harold's office, feet up on his desk, heating pad on my stomach, when the circus began. Luis arrived first with 3 other health inspectors. I handed them a detailed map of violations, complete with photos and dates. They hadn't even made it to the kitchen when Malik's news van pulled up outside. Mrs. Chun, Malik said, his cameraman already rolling, can you tell us about the working conditions here? I stood carefully, making sure the camera caught me wincing and holding my bandages. I'm 5 days post-operative from major surgery, I said clearly. My in-laws threatened me with eviction if I didn't run their restaurant while they vacationed in Vegas. But what I found when they left me in charge was worse than labor exploitation. The health inspectors emerged from the kitchen looking grim. Luis shook his head at me. They'd found everything I'd documented and more. That's when the Department of Labor showed up. By noon, the Golden Walk was shut down, red condemned notices plastered across the windows. The news crew interviewed a stream of employees, each with worse stories than the last. The labor investigator had boxes of evidence to sort through. And I sat in the middle of it all, answering questions and providing documentation, looking every inch the wounded daughter-in-law who'd been pushed too far. My phone had been ringing nonstop since the health department posted their shutdown notice on social media. Mark's panicked voicemails grew increasingly frantic. Nina, what the hell is happening? The restaurant is on the news. MOM is having a breakdown. Call me back now. I didn't call back. I was too busy talking to the IRS agent who'd arrived after lunch, very interested in those 2 sets of books I'd found. By 3 p.m., when I knew they'd be driving back from the airport, I finally answered Mark's call. What did you do? He screamed. Exactly what your parents asked, I said calmly. I ran the restaurant. I supervised. I kept it open every single day, just like they demanded. You destroyed everything. You vindictive. Vindictive? I laughed, then winced as it pulled my stitches. Your parents forced me to work 5 days after surgery. That's not vindictive, Mark. That's criminal. Which is why I've also filed charges for coercion and endangerment. You can't. Where are we going to live? The apartment is a health code violation, I finished. The city inspector is there now. I showed him the black mold in the bathroom that your mother painted over, the rats in the walls she ignored, the broken heating system she refused to fix. We have 30 days to vacate, but don't worry. I already found us a place. Us. His voice was small now. Well, me, I corrected. Whether there's an us depends on what you do next. You can stand with your criminal parents. or you can stand with your wife who they nearly killed with their greed. Your choice. I hung up and turned back to Malik, who was setting up for a final interview. Behind him, I could see Harold's BMW pulling into the parking lot. This was going to be good. The confrontation was everything I'd hoped for. Harold burst out of the car, his face purple with rage, screaming about lawsuits and family loyalty, while 3 different law enforcement agencies looked on. Patricia tried to attack me, shrieking about ungrateful daughters-in-law, and had to be restrained by police. Mark stood between us, looking lost. You did this. Harold pointed at me, spittle flying. You destroyed 40 years of hard work. No, I said, standing as straight as my incision would allow. You destroyed it. 40 years of stealing wages, endangering employees, lying to the government. I just showed everyone what was already there. We gave you everything. Patricia wailed. A home. A job. You gave me threats and exploitation. I shot back. You used my vulnerability to trap me. Well, congratulations. You taught me exactly how your business works. Every dirty secret, every hidden crime. And then you handed me the keys. The IRS agent stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, we need you to come with us. We have questions about your tax filings. As they were led away, I turned to Mark one last time. I'll be at Carla's, I said. When you decide whether you're your parents' son or my husband, you know where to find me. 3 months later, I sat in my new apartment, one with working heat and no mold, reading the final news article about the Golden Walk scandal. Harold and Patricia were facing serious jail time for tax evasion and wage theft. The restaurant property had been seized and sold to pay back wages to employees. And the apartment building was being renovated by new owners who actually cared about their tenants. Mark had chosen his parents. The divorce papers were already filed. As for me, I was healing both physically and emotionally. The surgery had been successful, no more tumor, no more pain. And the trauma of living under my in-laws' control was finally behind me. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa, sending pictures from her new job at Rosita's. She was smiling, holding up her first real paycheck with proper overtime. Thank you, her message said. You saved us all. I hadn't saved anyone. I'd just done exactly what Harold and Patricia had demanded. I'd run their restaurant. They just hadn't specified that I had to run it their way. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about refusing to be destroyed yourself, about finding strength in your moment of greatest weakness, and about using the tools of your oppressors against them. They'd handed me the keys to their kingdom, thinking I was too weak to turn them. They thought wrong.